In this video, I will cover my approach to the learning process, that is, its structure and sources. But first, a piece of advice. Remember, you are on this for the long haul.
All good things to those who wait.
Now let us consider the subject of guidance. If you recall the previous video, I made a comparison between the learning process of a child and that of an adult. It is only natural that, as an adult, you need less external guidance than a child does. It is also natural that, as an adult, you have greater capability to add value to an endeavor, a value that is unique to you. You have not only previous knowledge and experience, but also the cognitive engine to make it so. Where I want to arrive at, to make it short, is a teacher giving you classes may not necessarily be the most helpful to you. I already mentioned that there are other approaches to learning, besides the classical industrial standards of the teacher-student. I recommend you to read the book by William Westney, The Perfect Wrong Notes, where he addresses some unfortunate student experiences, including adult students, and he also delves deeper into how you, as a student, can develop a healthy approach to learning as the leading actor in the process. I will tease your appetite with a brief quote from his book. Starting quote. After a while, Roberta was able to reclaim the most basic technical skill of all, awareness and enjoyment of how things actually feel. As she put it, such a renaissance depends on restoring a basic belief, the belief that it can be yours. End of quote. You also have other pedagogical approaches that innovate the classical teacher-student paradigm, and in this regard, you might find it interesting to explore the concept of exformative learning. I recommend you have a look at Francis Leilman's website. I had a workshop with him about the subject, and it is a very good resource for personal development and learning. It is the reference number 1 on this video description. So, do you need someone to look up to in order to learn to play the violin? Most definitely, yes, you do. When I introduced this series, I said that I am a self-guided student. I didn't use the word self-taught because of that reason. No one is really alone in teaching himself anything. But does it have to be a knowledgeable professional teaching you live? Certainly not. In my case, I started on my own because I didn't want to pay expensive classes just to learn the basics, which I was certain I could get a grasp of before afterwards joining teacher lessons. It turns out that I started to progress, slowly but steadily, and getting to like it. So, against my legitimate initial expectations, I continued until today practicing on my own. However, I have been guided by others, which happen to be teachers, because I follow a method proposed by them. So I still have learned with violin teachers, hence I am not self-taught. Here I wish to make a brief pause. I want to let you know that I am taking everything about the violin and music here on the pragmatic side, or if you prefer, on the phenomenological aspect in the sense that Maestro Sergio Celibidache referred to the term. This is important because I want you to know that I do not neglect the abstract, emotional, subjective dimensions of music and making music. What I am certain of, however, is that those are intrinsic to you and to no one else. It is about your journey. It is up to you. It is your own privilege to discover and wander through that yellow brick road of yours. Here I am sharing with you the basics for your setup on that endeavor, but it's you who will walk the steps. This is why I will not try to motivate you with wonderful exclamations and smileys and confettis. To motivate you, I will need to know your circumstances, which is not possible. You can have a look into my position regarding motivation in the article on my website, which is the reference number 2 in this video description. However, as you will see in a moment, I have kept a place for those dimensions of yours. I encourage you to look for the videos of Celibidache's musical phenomenology lectures. It can only enrich your musical education. Now I will consider the method I follow and its place in the overall strategy, that is, the structure of learning. Jean-Baptiste Marc Bouguerie was a French surgeon and anatomist of the 19th century. You are invited to learn about what made his career different from others in his field at the time, and I will just give you a hint about it. It is related to following a formal, standardized procedure of proving your professional competence, and the approaches devised when, for some set of reasons, you are not granted the due recognition for your contributions in the field. And its relation to the learning process is the reason why I tell you about him here. Let me quote Dr. Bouguerie on some quite remarkable assertion he made on his Atlas of Human Anatomy and Surgery, firstly published in Paris between 1831 and 1854. Starting quote: "We wish to be able to demonstrate that the knowledge of the body should serve as the basis for morals, the law, and political economy." End of quote. So let's follow Dr. Bouguerie's leads and consider the human body. Your body has a rigid core, which are the bones, on top of which the muscles are fixed, which are by definition moving parts. They are actually motor parts. Covering the muscle, you have a layer of fat, which is even more flexible than the muscles. This structure works on your body, and it does on your learning too. You benefit from having solid ground on which to place your feet, without getting lost or drowned along the way. But you also need the flexibility to adapt to changes, both perceived or imposed on you. The solid core in my case is a violin method devised by the violinist and teacher Maya Bank, with contributions by her teacher Professor Leopold Auer. The Maya Bank violin method is a book written around 1919, and it guides you through a path covering basic and advanced techniques, with exercises devised to address each technique in an efficient way for the students. It has been guiding me for the last 3 years and a half, and I am very pleased with it. However, a written reference will not suffice. You need your own methods to make the best use of it. And also there are many aspects to learning to play an instrument that you won't find written in a book. Firstly, because it is about playing music. And secondly, because it is about your learning, not anyone else's. You will need to place muscles and fat on top of it. So here is where we consider the structure of the learning process. My sessions are structured in 3 parts. They start with a warm-up, which sets me up for the second part. The warm-up should be the shortest part, and it usually consists of a small number of exercises selected for the broader range of skills that they tackle, or because they focus on a specific area to which the second part is dedicated at the moment. Or some technique that I identified I should be working on for the longer run. The warm-up has the particularity that it is performed when I am the least tired. Because of that, many times those techniques that I'm working on the long run are placed here because they are harder to perform for me. Now you could ask, why do I move stuff into the warm-up? Why not make it fixed, the same way you warm up for other physical activities? Well, that's because of the muscle and fat that we need to add on top of the bony second part. During the second part, I spent a few sessions executing the same exercises, following the method for violin that I mentioned. Sometimes I can spend several weeks on the same topic, but the goal in the second part is to progress more or less linearly in the method. For example, now I am doing the fifth position, in some weeks I will turn to the trill, and afterwards the spiccato. I want to remove the roadblocks to keep this progress unimpeded as much as possible, and that is why when I spot an exercise that beats me consistently, I move it to the warm-up after working it in the second part. So, despite being the shortest part, the first part is where the harder and lengthier work is actually done. While I may work for 2 weeks on a skill in the second part, I may spend months hammering it in the warm-up. You can understand now why I use the warm-up for it instead of the third part. I am fresh and energized at the beginning, but may become tired by the end. This approach is not only efficient technically, but it is also motivational. Keeping up progressing on the method you are following is a powerful incentive and reward. So, the second part being the analog to the bones, and the first to the muscles, replace the fat of learning in the third and last part. This will be the most unstructured of all them. Whereas before you were concerned with technical skills and progress, here is where you take care of motivation. This is a purely exploratory part. There are no goals to achieve, and here is where I try to play some piece that I like, or just explore new approaches or combinations of techniques. This is where I relax and enjoy after the session's work, and I often get new ideas about my next work. I often try to make transcriptions for violin from different types of music, and I think this is very motivating and a very useful exercise to push you on your skills. This is a safe room for experimenting and failing and recovering, for the beautiful and the ugly. This is very important to glue the different parts into a whole and make them about your unique experience. I will get back to this on a third video. I made a video about this subject some time ago. Please refer to it if you want to see me practicing what I preach. It is reference number 3 in this video description. So this is how I structure my work. I hope that it resonates with you and that you can get useful insights from my experience. You are also welcome to leave your comments on this below and share your experience and how you are doing it. It might be useful for other people watching this video to know about it. I wish now to close the second video with a word about time. The first times you handle a violin, you should do so for a very short period of time. In my case, I would exceptionally exceed half an hour. This is important because playing the violin, as playful as it may seem, is very demanding both physically and cognitively. It can quickly hinder your performance as a beginner and consequently lower your morale. You should allow yourself to feel in time how to increase the duration of your practice sessions, based on how it feels to you and your body, and based on your personal schedule. After a couple of years, you might find yourself immersed for an hour and you didn't realize it, whereas at the beginning it would have left you drained. You probably will be working during the day and only be available in the end of the day, when you may already feel weary from work. From the first session and ever since, it will always be more useful to you to practice frequently rather than extensively. Here you are applying a very important and general principle, which you already know, but which I call the method of minimum differences. It is the idea that any change can be brought about, surely, if steadily, over a long period of time, through minimal variations or efforts. Look at nature if you need visuals for this. It is all around you, and you are pretty much powerless to stop these processes from achieving their end, precisely because they operate at such a slow degree of change. As the virtuoso Alexander Markov said in one of his video lectures, you should aim to develop the foundation of your technique, instead of just fancy tricks on crash courses. And this is not just philosophy. Playing a violin requires such a vast combination of techniques and movements that can only be learned by long-lasting practice and internalization of the minute nuances of each by your brain. You will never, ever be able to mimic those in a short period of time. Remember, as said earlier, you are on this for the long haul. Also, when you are performing an exercise, you should keep insisting on it for a while after you got to a satisfactory level on its execution. You will notice that this further consolidates the technique, movements, and rhythms in your brain, and it will show in the other techniques that are built on top of that one. Here, spiritual advice also applies, in this case taken from a Rosicrucian textbook. Starting quote: "Do not make haste, stay on the right track, so thou wilt have much profit and much joy." End of quote. Let also our friend Matt Garrett, here on YouTube, tell you something about this too, and allow yourself to meditate on this subject. This is the reference number 4 in this video description. I encourage you to watch his video and ponder about it, also in relation to what I explained to you before. In the next and last video, I will address miscellaneous topics and final considerations.